Hello and welcome to the Social Scoop. I'm your host Hillier, and on today's show we are delving into the world of social media, discussing the impact of growing usage on social platforms on your mental health. From January 2024, 1 in 3 people are estimated to have social media. That is almost 2/3 of the global population, which is insane. Here to discuss this with us, we have 3 amazing guests. Let's meet them, shall we? Welcome to the show. What's your name?
I'm Neve.
Hello. Are you working or are you studying?
I'm a full-time student.
What does your course entail?
So I do musical theatre and music production.
Okay. Do you use technology regularly?
Yeah, I use it a lot, probably every day. I have to use it for my course and stuff. So.
Thank you for that, Neve. Hello. What's your name?
I'm Pedro.
Are you currently studying or are you working full-time?
I'm working.
You're working. What does your job entail?
I work as a community manager for Fallen Planet Studios, so working with social medias, making sure that we're running the posts when they should go, make sure that we have campaigns running for the company and advertising the game.
Would you say that you use technology regularly?
Oh yeah, on a daily basis. Without it, it would be impossible to do a decent job with it.
Thank you for that. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Susie.
Are you currently working or are you studying full-time?
I'm both studying and working.
Okay, with your work and your studies, what does it entail?
So for my studies, I'm a media and communication student as well as film and visual culture. So I go for both the theory and practical sides of both courses. For my work, I'm a receptionist and a waitress in a hotel.
Thank you for that. Would you say you use technology regularly?
Yes, it's especially very important for my media work when learning how kind of social media actually works and what goes into it. For my work, it's especially important when making sure that everyone's where they're supposed to be, and in case of emergencies, I know who to contact.
Thank you for that. Before the show, we sent out a survey to better understand how people use their phones and what they think about the ever-changing world of social media. We have some of the results with us now, and we will refer to them throughout the show. For example, we concluded that 40.8% would say they require social media for their job, whether that be for communication, distribution of products or advertisements. We're now going to look at the video.
Discussion. 1.5.
Well, lovely. Well,
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Instagram and Pinterest.
Oh,
Probably TikTok, Snapchat,
Snapchat, Instagram.
WhatsApp, Discord, and I don't know. I only use those two also. Oh yeah, I use YouTube also.
Alright, on your phone. Well, Twitter, which is X, isn't it? WhatsApp, is that? Yeah, and probably Apple MacBook.
Snapchat, Instagram.
Probably Google, Facebook, Illustrator.
I don't know say. It's a lot.
Have to use 36 hours.
9 hours.
Like 6 hours.
That says now. Right here.
Calling me out around this week. I'm gonna get like 6, probably 5 months. I know. But you know, we can have a lot, but it's probably around 50, you know.
Mine's like 8 to 10. My daily average is 7 hours.
I'm always in the phone, hanging out. Bit of a problem.
6 hours.
Too much. I would say 3 hours.
quite hard.
I could probably go without it, but
Without it would take a lot of effort. Yeah.
Rely. I don't know.
It's not very good. I would ever want to use it. But that makes sense.
are you quite relaxed or have you been? Yeah.
I think I'm nice, but
Oh, I'm quite relaxed. No, reliant. Not reliant. Yeah, quite reliant. Yeah, I agree.
What are your thoughts on the video?
It's interesting to see like the age range and how differently it can be, like either with how they name the apps. Like for example, I think it was the guy who said it was 61 calling it Apple MacBook, so like referring back to what it used to be called before like technology took over, and how a younger audience like knows how to address it better and how to refer to it better, like someone pulling like their phone and being like and checking the proper time. So it's interesting to see how different ages use it differently, if you will.
Thank you for sharing that. What would you say your opinions are on some of the answers that were given?
I feel it's interesting how different the time usage is. How Petra mentioned before, between, for example, someone in the over 40s feeling 3 hours is too much on a app on your phone, whereas we have people who are like 15 hours.
Yeah, that's when like how a younger audience, like the main one was like Snapchat and Instagram, and for like an older audience was like WhatsApp, and then like very specific ones like what was it, AutoTrader or something. So they have more niche apps, where and then younger audiences are more used with social media and everything. They would just use generally the same ones.
It was interesting that they referred to Google as an app, which is something I think younger generation doesn't really.
I guess, but if you have an iPhone, you need to download the app
Yeah.
for Google, so I guess it could be that as well.
What is your average screen time?
More than I would like, to be honest. Probably around, I try to keep it down, but probably about 6 hours in average-ish, give or take. On the weekends it's more, but we ignore that.
What would you say your most used apps are?
Probably TikTok and Twitter/Instagram, but TikTok's definitely first, unfortunately.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you for sharing that. With your jobs or career paths, would you say it's important to have social media presence?
I definitely would, especially when it comes to the fact that, because obviously like being a performer and in music production, I think you need social media in order to be able to put yourself forward. You need it for finding gigs, being able to turn around and, you know, just using it as a platform to be able to sit there and go, this is what I do, this is how I do it, these are the things that I have done. You have a lot of performers and bands who turn around and post on there, especially in Liverpool, which is where I'm based. There's such a big underground music scene, and there's not particularly a big way to be able to even show what you've done unless it's on social media. So I do think social media is a very big aspect of at least my career and my job.
Thank you for sharing that. Would you say with your job that your social media is important?
I would say it's important for me to be aware of what's going on and like trends, so like I can adapt what we're currently doing like with our campaigns to what's going on. But I don't feel like me being like present like as me is that important. I know some other community managers for other companies who like post on their personal accounts and interact with the personal accounts, but it's very more of a niche case. It is important for me to know, but not really mainly use it or post it myself.
Thank you for that. Susie, would you say that?
So currently, for my current job, having a strong social media presence is important in order to promote the hotel itself for functions and events. But for the future for myself, because I want to get into the film industry, I feel building up my social media presence will be very important, just so I can build not only my social media presence to be kind of known for what I'm doing, but also to build my portfolio.
Thank you for sharing that. According to our survey, the 4 most common platforms were TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook and Instagram. TikTok was the most used platform with a huge increase in downloads since the pandemic, and it has become the most popular media app worldwide. Over 1 billion active users have TikTok. Do you use TikTok?
I do, yeah.
Do you post or prefer to scroll?
I tend to just scroll through it, to be honest. I don't really post. It's just a lot of casual, just doom scrolling before bed, so.
What would you say your opinions on apps like TikTok are? Do you think they're detrimental to someone's mental health, or do you think they're a good form of social media platform?
I wouldn't necessarily say detrimental is the correct word to use. I do think that apps can have a negative impact on people's mental health, but at the same time I think it can have a positive impact. But I don't think detrimental's the correct word to use. I think, you know, as with most things, everything can have both a positive and a negative impact. It just depends on how you use it and how you go about letting things kind of impact on you, you know.
Thank you again for sharing your thoughts. If we take a look at the screen, we have a chart that outlines the various uses of smartphones by age group. As you can see, 95% of 65s and over use their phone mainly to make calls, as opposed to the 90% of 16 to 24-year-olds. Would you say that age plays a leading role in the way a person uses their phones?
I would say mainly, to be honest, because referring back to the video, like, just the way they call is really different and they use it. So, for example, I know that, like, for example, with my grandma, she mainly uses just messaging, getting in touch, and then taking pictures, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So I know that, like, with an older age group, they're a bit more reluctant into using it, but reluctant more in a way that since they're not too sure how to use it, it makes it a bit more of a barrier, and they tend to just use it for the basics, because it's pretty much something like making phone calls and stuff, and it's something that's been out for ages, so they tend to just stick to what they know because of the barrier of, like, trying to learn something new.
Do you think that there's any reason that people over 65 will use their phones to make calls rather than texts or emails?
I think it's purely because due to the kind of difference of how we grew up with our generation, for example. We grew up with technology on phones since probably age of 6 in some cases.
Yeah.
So we were already able to use different apps, whereas the older generation, they're used to more kind of analog technology. So texting, calls, and emails were kind of the go-to because they didn't have apps such as Twitter or Facebook. That was still kind of developing, but when they were getting used to the technology.
Do you think that social media statistics are so high for 16 to 34-year-olds because they are more comfortable behind a screen where they're able to be authentic and genuine without verbal hate or discrimination?
It tends of you being anonymous does give you some kind of confidence in kind of saying, being who you want to be, but at the same time, it allows kind of for more unregulated kind of behaviors to be. So I wouldn't say it's critique free, because there are many examples of where kind of hatred was kind of magnified because of social media, because of the connection with the people.
Thank you for sharing that. Our research shows that 63.3% of people rely on social media for communication with their friends and family. Why do you think this is?
I think that obviously, like, distance plays a part in it, because especially nowadays it's quite expensive to travel. Not everybody can necessarily afford to be getting a train or paying for petrol constantly to travel from one side of the country to the other side of the country. So I do think that plays a part in it. Also, you know, we didn't always have things like Facebook Messenger or Instagram or Twitter or, you know, whatever you're using to contact your family with. We didn't always have that, and now it's so much easier to stay in contact with all of your family rather than just, you know, one or two. I know myself that I have such an overwhelmingly large family that it does get quite complicated at times, and it's so much easier to just make one of those private Facebook pages and just have all of them in one, and just someone can go, oh, hi guys, let's all do this thing, or hope everybody's okay, and you can just stay in contact with them that way. It is just a lot easier, it's a lot cheaper, because as I've said, you know, cost of living, people need to kind of prioritise where they're spending their money and what they're doing. So I think that plays a massive part in it as well.
Thank you for that. Social media can be a wondrous form of communication. However, there are dangers to it. From our survey, we discovered that 15% of people feel unsafe posting on social media, and a more concerning 47% felt pressured to act or look in a certain way based off posts and comments they see online. The impact of influencer culture can have a young person's self-image can be detrimental and puts a larger amount of the population at risk, developing mental health disorders such as anxiety or eating disorders. It is incredibly important to talk about the bad side of social media to bring to light these issues and ultimately reduce them. Would you agree with this, Niamh?
I think it's unfair to say that social media is the cause of mental health issues, because they're such complicated things, and I mean, there's no such thing as, like, you know, one specific reason as to why somebody will develop a mental health issue. There's so many different factors that that there is to take into account. Genetic factors, external factors, internal factors. There's so many things, and I think it is important to also take into account the person themselves and what they're doing. That's not me putting blame onto the person, I do want to clarify that. But when it comes to social media, somebody who's using it for, let's say, 12 hours a day, if you've got a 12-hour screen time, obviously that's potentially going to have more of a negative impact on you than somebody with a 3-hour screen time, because you'll be seeing all of these people, all of these like TikTok influencers, Instagram influencers who are posting, and they've got these lush, lavish lives, and you'll sit there and you'll go, well, I'm doing what they're posting, I'm doing the things that they're doing, so why do I not feel like that? Why do I not have that? What am I doing wrong? And you're going to end up obsessing over it, and it will potentially have a negative impact on you. Someone with a 3-hour day screen time won't have that, because not everything on social media is true. A lot of it is fake. That's the whole point of it. Everybody on social media is advertising something, whether it's advertising a life that they don't have because they're trying to portray something, or a product. A lot of it is just, look at me, I'm doing this thing, I went to Scotland the other week, look at what I did. That's kind of the whole point of it. So I don't think it's fair to turn around and say, oh, social media is the whole point and the whole reason why people are mentally ill. I think it's shed a light and it's shone a light on a lot of disorders that people weren't necessarily aware existed, such as DID or EUPD. But I don't think it's the cause of them.
Thank you for sharing that. Was there a social media scandal that made you feel upset or angry with the way an influencer has used the platform?
Honestly, for me, I mainly use it casual. For example, like TikTok, for example, I don't follow any specific TikTokers, so like whenever there's like that type of scandal, it's usually like, oh, who's that? At least for me personally, because of how casually I use it. So that I don't think there's any specific one and like, oh yeah, that person did this, so like, not gonna watch this stuff anymore. Because at least with the stuff I watch, fortunately at least, it doesn't happen.
Thank you for that. Moving on to Susie, have you ever experienced cyberbullying, whether it was personal or you've witnessed it in a comment section?
Personally, I did experience cyberbullying when I was, I say, 13, 14 years old. But I feel in that regard, it didn't really impact me as it would someone else, because for me, if I do get bullied, as I bullied, it's for me it's just words, but some people could actually take it quite seriously. But I think with cyberbullying, it's the kind of cowardness of it. Like they can say it to you through messages, but not to your face, which kind of made me kind of feel less kind of impacted by that fact.
Thank you for sharing that, Susie. At the end of our survey, we've left it up to you to tell us your thoughts and opinions on social media. One response stated, while social media can have a profound effect on mental health, it should be noted that it goes both ways. It cannot be denied that people tend to feel a more sense of freedom on social media and use this as an excuse to say things they may not say otherwise. But it also allows people, such as myself, to express themselves in a much healthier and positive way that they may not be able to do in general society. Would you say this is an accurate take on social media as a whole? Do you think it can be a good thing and a bad thing for your mental health?
I do, yeah. I would agree with that.
What about yourselves?
Yeah, I think social media is like anything else, like everything really. It can, if there's too much of it, like, it can cause negative effects. But at the same time, it has this positive, like connecting people and kind of being a creative outlet.
Thank you for that. That brings us to the end of today's show. I would like to thank everyone for watching and our wonderful guests for sharing their thoughts on a topic that is so relevant to today's society. I would also like to say to anyone who is related to any of the issues brought up in today's show that you are not alone. Thank you for watching. See you next time on The Social Scoop.